This is The Making of a Leader by J. Robert Clinton. They've just come out with a second edition recently. And this is probably the best leadership development book that I've ever read. So if you're interested in how God develops leadership, this is a great book for you. Clinton is a professor at Fuller University. I think he's retired now, but for years there taught on leadership development and leadership principles. He's I believe, an engineer by background, so he brings sort of an engineering approach to this. But what I gained from Clinton was just the idea of process, that life is a developmental process that God has us in that's going somewhere, as opposed to the Flatlander view where life is a series of tests and right and wrong choices that I must pass, and if I make the wrong choice, I fail. So Clinton is very much a student of the process of development that God puts us in life. And what he does in this book is he divides life into stages, that there's stages in the character development of a leader, and we go through certain phases in our character growth. And he breaks down each phase and describes certain tasks, leadership tasks that happen during that phase. So there's descriptions of ways that you learn to hear God's leading, that you test God's leading, and that's part of the process. There's a bunch of stuff on how you deal with adversity and suffering and how that develops you as a leader. Clinton also, he did a lot of studying of leaders' lives, both in the Bible and contemporary and historical leaders, and he had a lot of his students do papers on leaders who had gone through these different stages and what the outcomes were. So a lot of that, there's a big research base for this that made it into the book, and that really makes it great as well, because you've got lots of real examples and you have the testimony of somebody who's been working at leadership for several decades and actually experienced this stuff. I also like about Clinton that there's, even though he's the engineering type, there's personal story in here of his own dealings with God and how God shaped his life. If you're familiar at all with Clinton, a lot of his material is very dense. This book, he has the benefit of a real editor, which helps it tremendously. So this book and his book on mentoring are by far the most readable of his stuff. So anyway, this has been greatly influential for me, and I highly recommend it for anybody who is a leader or who works with leaders. It will give you a lot of insight into the process of how God develops people for leadership.